Right, guys, we're just going to have a little look at the Renaissance period now. We're going to focus it on, the factors that are changing the understanding of this period. Remember, whilst based on the Great Plague video, not a lot changes on the ground. However, it's all about knowledge and understanding at the top levels. You see things, you see great individuals start to push the boundaries and move away from those factors from the medieval period. That's why I think it's important to keep in mind the idea in the medieval period that the church dominates and they use Galen. Now in this period, you see individuals breaking away from that pattern. Now, to start with, just an idea of how things are changing, you look at the simple differences between medieval art and Renaissance art. This is why, it's seen as such an important period of change. Now, in particular, the human body, look at the difference on the left and right. Now, some of you will be aware the uses on the left coming from Galen, uses on the right coming from people like Vesalius and his book, The Fabric of the Human Body, which we'll look at later. However, significant change. So what is it? Well, the word Renaissance, French for rebirth. Common misconception that it's Italian. Renaissance really does take off in Italy, but it is a French word. 1500, 1700, we need to be on top of these dates, guys, we really do. I've said to my classes, but in general, one of the most frustrating things as a marker is to see somebody start giving a great analysis on a scientific or physician factors that are out of period. You just don't get marked for them. Okay, so again, ideas that are starting to influence medicine, breaking down old beliefs, that's the key. Remember, change and continuity, and the change here is breaking down of those old beliefs. And then showing how previous ideas were actually false or incorrect or had errors. But again, remember, this doesn't quite filter all the way down straight away, so just keep that in mind. Right, so did much change in the Renaissance? So again, what's changing? Well, theory of the four humours, not many people are following it by the end of this period. People are more curious about the world. Remember, this comes with humanism. Scientists and scientific progression are really making their way during this period. What's not changing? Well, the herbal remedies are still quite similar. There are a few changes with new herbs that are coming in from the New World, but we'll talk about them in another video. Miasma is still a cause. That will be a common theme up until the industrial period. And the practice of medicine is still similar. Like I said, whilst ideas, understanding, and knowledge of medicine is changing, those actual practical skills of medicine aren't, because they're not filtering down to the lower classes. Right, so the Renaissance itself. So we've got a new interest in science and experiments. Humanism. Now, I do bang on about humanism, but it is so important. That idea, the ideology that is going through Europe at this time, it's a movement where people move away from thinking God explained everything in the universe. Really significant for people breaking down those old beliefs. Okay, humanism allows people, or really pushes people to challenge that. Arts and culture. That really helps change things. And, people do start looking at classical scholars again, like Galen and Hippocrates. However, they are challenging those ideas. They're looking at them to be like, right, how can we forward medicine based on these, not just taking them as gospel? And we will talk about the printing press. Right, so why are the changes? So, again, few definitions for you to note down. Humanism I'd focus more on. Secular, if you haven't come across that word, it's just no religious or connected spiritual beliefs. Now, secular society is more relevant later on, but humanism is the big one here. So what we're going to talk about in the next few slides? Well, philosophical transactions, which hopefully you will be aware of from the Royal Society, and the printing press, the big one. So, printing press, 1440, you'll notice that date is in the medieval period. However, it doesn't really have a big impact until the Renaissance. Johannes Gutenberg was the first one to invent it. It allows information to spread quickly. Most importantly, this weakens the power of the church. Remember, the way we get these top marks here is how we use the knowledge we have, and to do that is to compare it to the period before. And remember, in the medieval times, the church is all dominant, and they are very much copying down works of Galen in their monasteries, and anything else is just dismissed. The printing press allows a cheaper, more accessible and faster distribution of new theories. Okay, that is very important in this period. Right, so one of the main guys in this period is Thomas Sydenham. Now, we're going on about him a lot, and he has been on previous papers, but he is one of your main ones to know. Now, interestingly, I know we teach Sydenham as like it's for observation, but there were other people like Paracelsus. Early on, he was kind of pushing the idea that there are other things affecting the body rather than the four humours, and then Fracastoro, who developed it further, he starts looking at these seeds in the air, thinking that disease was something more external, not your nature. So Sydenham kind of bounces off this, and he really didn't want to rely on people like Galen. He believed it was up to the physician to diagnose their patients, observing all symptoms, and that diseases were like plants and animals, not caused by something the patient actually did. Now, this was quite controversial, that the fact that he believed diseases could be organized into different groups, because according to like the four humours, a patient's disease was quite personal to them. He believed that physicians and doctors did not understand diseases because they had not communicated the ideas and took enough time to study different diseases. That was really important here. So why is Sydenham significant? He's really moving away from this idea of the four humours, and how treatment should also vary from person to person depending on that disease. That encouragement of observation, and if everybody has the same kind of symptoms, that means you treat it based on that symptom and that disease. He really kind of lays the foundations for like this scientific approach. So he didn't have the technology with him to kind of isolate different microorganisms that we get later on with Robert Koch, but he is like a trailblazer in that idea of this kind of study. He is able to identify things like measles and scarlet fever and show how they're separate diseases. So very important. And remember, why is he significant? Well, he's telling other physicians to move away from the theory of four humours. Right, another really important part of this period is the Royal Society. Just one to take a note of because it's set up a lot later in 1660, promoting sharing scientific ideas. They debate new theories that come through. They're given a royal charter that's significant from Charles II, who was quite a big enthusiast of science. But it really gives them credibility. The fact that they've had this royal charter backed by the king, people have to take them seriously. Now they really make use of the printing press. Their journal, the Philosophical Transactions, which is set up, this really makes their works accessible. It's so important to have, and it applies to all scientific theories that come out from here, which we'll have a look in the next slide. So this slide here, we're going to have a look at Liu. Right, I butcher this name, but Liu Wenhua. Now he develops a microscope and observes animalcules, or little animals. Now he's able to do this, but through the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society. So think about how they go hand in hand with each other, how the Royal Society really is kind of like this locomotive for pushing scientific theory, because the Royal Society, they use this funding to push it forward. Again, they also encourage their members to write things in English to make it more accessible. So Royal Society is really an underused kind of point in the Renaissance through time topic. You can access so many different questions with it because of what it does: the funding, the debating, the use of the printing press. They're using the idea of humanism. They really move. They scientists that are back or published in their through the philosophical transactions really get their words out there. Again, it also, most importantly, it makes scientists kind of available for other physicians. Sorry, so it makes their work accessible, so they can study each other's work. Again, the new microscopes really push this forward even further to analyze and push forward the science that is available during this time. So again, really one to be aware of.